Call to order the City of Natchitoches Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. The full audio of tonight's planning and zoning meetings are available, and other meetings are available at www.cityofnatchitochesla.gov. The next city council meeting is August the 12th, 2022 at this location. Application for zoning will be introduced at that time, and the final voting on rezonings will occur on August the 26th, 2022. All interested I'm sorry? You're correct, but I'm reading from my script.
Yes, it is.
Y'all can dock my pay, how about that?
Yeah.
What are those dates, Miss?
It's gonna be September, hold on. September 26th is the final voting.
And the introductions are September
September
12th? All right, just a typo, just a little typo. Okay, so let's start over. The next city council meeting will be September the 12th, 2022 at this location. Applications for rezoning will be introduced at that time. In theory, there is no discussion at that time. However, some people will show up and say they have to be in Houston or Detroit or LA or Charleston, and they can't be here for the actual voting, and so the council will allow them to speak. What I encourage people that are for or against something are to show up for that introduction, so in case something is said, you can at least counter it or add to it. But the final voting on any rezonings will be September the 26th, 2022. There will be no actions taken on September the 12th other than introduction. However, as I said, there may be some discussion for folks who claim that they cannot be present at the final voting. Any appeals for applications for variances or waivers must be filed in writing within 10 days from today of tonight's decision. Otherwise, they become final on the 11th day. Ms. Oaks, Ms. Rock can tell you all who all to go to. I assume it's the city clerk to file that appeal, but it must be filed within 10 days. I would ask everybody, if they didn't sign in previously, to sign in for this meeting. We'll take any testimony from the AMBO or the podium up here. I would ask the speakers to identify themselves with their name and where they reside. I'd ask them to speak directly into the mic. We have no Zoom. We don't do Zoom anymore. That's correct. So the next Planning Commission meeting is Tuesday, October the 4th, 2022 at 5 p.m. right here. The procedure we'll take in hearing applications is we will hear from the applicant or his designee. Then we will hear from persons that are in favor of the application. Then we will hear from folks opposed to the application, and then we will have a rebuttal from a single person designated by the applicant to respond to any of the opposition comments, but it will not be any bigger than that. And of course, during the process, the members of the commission will have a chance to question any of the persons that are speaking. And I'd also like to welcome Mr. Walter Johnson as a new member. I guess he was a member last month when I was off on for my anniversary. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Thank you for your service. I hope you still feel that way in a year or so. Okay. But we appreciate you doing that. Any other comments or call to order, Ms. Rock?
Call to order, there's no more.
All right. Roman number 2, Ms. Oaks, roll call.
Here.
Anita Boyce.
Here.
Charles Whitehead III.
Here.
Walter Johnson.
Here.
Ricky McAllister. Ron Brown.
Here.
Isaac Lewis.
Here.
Ethel Blake. Michael Lewis.
Here. By my count, that's a quorum, ladies. Is that correct?
That's correct.
One other thing I forgot in my comments, if you have a cell phone, I'd ask you put it on silent or turn it off at this time. Roman numeral 3, approval of the minutes of the August 2nd meeting. As I had stated previously, the recordings for all city meetings videos will now be posted on the city's website. To watch these videos, the user can subscribe to the city's YouTube channel at City of Natchitoches, LA, or visit the city's website link at https://www.natchitochela.gov/content/meeting-videos. If there are not any corrections, additions, or deletions, I would entertain a motion to waive the formal reading of the minutes and approve them as proposed.
I so move.
A motion by
Second.
Lewis, second by Claiborne. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. All right. Roman numeral 4, old business. We have no old business, is that correct?
Not at the moment.
All right. Roman numeral 5, subsection A, the application by Mr. Ellis and Miss Melinda Newman for a tiny home placement at the following location, lot being a portion of Lot H of Monroe Sibley Lake subdivision is shown on a plat of survey and conveyance book 286, folio 263, and north 25 feet of Lot 10 and Lot 11 of Maley subdivision, and a 30-foot strip across north said lot. The reason is a residential tiny home placement. It would bear municipal address 385 Monroe Drive, exhibit number 3 in Commissioner's packet. Councilperson District number 4, comments by the director before we hear from the applicant or his designee.
Well, the only comments I can give is that this was a pretty unique situation. I think they were in a situation where they needed to go ahead on and place the home on the property before coming before the planning commission. But as time allowed it, we had to push them back until this meeting because of how things happen. It is a tiny home. It's been verified as actually a tiny home placement. But according to our ordinance, because of the stipulation on what a manufactured home is and what a modular home is, they had to ask for approval for the tiny home placement. So we asked them to come before planning and zoning to present what they had for the approval.
Is it fair to say this is something we're gonna try to, I know there's been pressure for these tiny homes for the last 5 years. Is this our first placement of one? Is the best?
No, actually, this was our second placement, but our third application.
Okay. Any complaints on the other ones? On the
Not at
other-
all. No questions. No one has any concerns about them.
No parking issues?
No
or any-
parking issues.
You haven't received anything like that?
No, no.
All right, thank you, Ms. Rock. Please, sir, state your name and address for the record.
Ellis Newman, and our address was 385 Monroe Drive. We just sold that home, and so now we're moving to 284 Monroe Drive, and that's where the tiny home would be placed. So that needs to be adjusted in the
Sure,
minutes.
well, and let's, we'll take care of that, thank you, sir. Any question, any additions, deletions, or clarifications that you need to make on the director's summary of your application?
No, I believe that's it.
All right, any questions from Mr. Newman from commission members?
Is this gonna be permanent, or will another home, permanent home be built?
No, sir, we're just leasing this from the Dunahos, and this home, we're going to eventually move it to our son's property after we buy or purchase, either buy or build one. But this one is going to be moved up to our son's property eventually so that we have a place to stay when we go visit the grandbabies. So currently, it's just on the slab of their home that had been there, had burnt down, and so we put it on that slab.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Mr. Newman. Any questions for Mr. Newman from commission members? Thank you, Mr. Newman. Anyone else want to speak on behalf of the application of Newman? Anyone want to speak in opposition to the application of Newman? Hearing none, I guess the first thing we need to do, based on Mr. Newman's testimony, we need to entertain an application to the extent, this may be a typo, but to the extent the application refers to 385 Monroe Drive, it needs to be amended to 284 Monroe Drive. Do I have such a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. DuBois, Ms. DuBois, second by Mr. Johnson. All in favor of amending the application simply to change the municipal number, say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. So the application, to the extent that it may be incorrect, is now amended to 284 Monroe Drive. Discussion by commission members.
Well, it seems to me there are only two issues. One is whether or not the home is going to be permanent. It's not. And a bigger issue to me would be if there were complaints or problems from neighbors. There are none, so it certainly seems like one to approve to me.
Any other discussion by commission members?
I move we approve.
Motion by DuBois to approve.
Second.
Second by Lewis. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. That'll be final in 11 days unless somebody appeals, Mr. Newman.
Thank you so
Just
much.
check with Ms. Rock or Ms. Oaks.
The only question I have is how soon could we get electricity and water to the property, because we've been
11
without it
days.
for over a month?
11 days.
Okay, thank you.
All right, no problem. Roman numeral 5, new business, the subsection B, the application, Ms. Carolyn Accord, to rezone the following: Lot 4, Block F of the Keegan addition from R1 residential to R1 residential with a special exception. The reason to operate a short-term rental bearing municipal address 516 Keegan Street, exhibit number 2 in Commissioner's packet, and councilperson district number 1. Would Ms. LaCour, a representative, come forward as we get a summary from the director?
So, Ms. LaCour, I think what we needed to clarify, was it, how are you today?
Fine, thank
Were
you.
you applying for a short-term rental or for a B&B?
I was applying for a short-term rental,
Okay.
and I wasn't sure about B&B. I haven't discovered about that yet. If
Okay.
I can get done what I needed with short-term rental, that's
Okay.
what I want.
Can I give a little more
Sure,
explanation on
please
what
do.
the difference is between a short-term rental and a B&B? So with a B&B, that is actually regulated by the state. It's actually under single-family use as a use by right to have a B&B. With the B&B, you're actually renting out individual rooms of the home, and it has to be inspected by the state. It's regulated by the state. It has a classification as an R1 for a family, but it actually operates more of a commercial use. For a short-term rental is such a thing as a R1. It's classified as single family. It's not regulated by the state. So what happens with a short-term rental, the owners of the property can go away for a week, 2 weeks, or whatever, and they will rent out the entire house. It won't be rented out by piece. The whole entire house itself will be rented. It won't be one bedroom with a family here, and the second bedroom, another family, or a third bedroom, another family, like a B&B would. Short-term rentals can be anything under 6 months at a time. But usually it's when the family is away for vacation, or if they're away for a holiday or going off to do work somewhere else for a week or anything like that. Then they'll rent their homes for that particular time. Most of the rentals that we have, they do this for tax purposes. They'll pay a higher tax, but their income is generated a little bit higher than a regular rental. Let's say you and I decide that we're gonna rent our home to, just for whatever reason, to anybody. We just don't have the tax associated with it because we don't have a short-term rental associated with the name or a B&B. But if I decided to get a little bit more income, then I'll get a designation, short-term rental or a B&B. If I want a B&B to actually operate on a more commercial stance, then that's what I'll do as a B&B. But with a short-term rental, it's just a single-family rental without the extra steps of having the state to regulate it.
And is it fair to say a short-term rental is a whole house rental versus?
It is a whole house rental.
All right.
I would be doing whole house rental.
Pardon?
I would be doing whole house rental.
Well, we
Mr.
have it
Cole?
on the application as a short-term rental on the
Yeah.
agenda, but the application itself said B&B, so that's why I wanted to make sure. that-
Because I didn't know what it was called.
Gotcha,
Sorry.
gotcha.
So do we need to amend that application as a matter of course?
I think we should, because on the application itself it said B&B, but on the agenda, we have it as a short-term rental.
Okay, and let me complicate it further. Sorry about that. Sometimes when the hospital, I'm right across the street from the hospital, when they have an overflow of their doctors and nurses, they will give me a call to see if I have something available. I don't know if that's going to
But
complicate
they rent
it.
the whole house.
They
don't
would rent the whole
individual rooms,
house.
right? So because they rent the entire house, they would be classified as a short-term rental.
Okay,
You don't have a say as to what doctor or what nurse can go where, right?
No.
The hospital calls you and said, hey, we want to rent your place for a week or 2 weeks or 5 days for X.
However,
Yeah.
I
But they
have
give it
not made
all.
an agreement, and I'm very picky. So if it isn't going to be that I can have a say-so, I won't be renting it.
Well,
Where's
my
your
point
house?
is you hand the keys over and they get a full run of the place.
No,
No, they don't?
No.
Only certain rooms?
no, they have the whole house.
That's what I'm saying. When
Okay.
you decide to rent to the NRMC, you hand them the keys for whatever period y'all agreed to, for whatever tenant y'all agreed to, but they have the whole house. It's not like
Right,
the radiologist gets the left half and the oncologist gets the right half.
No,
The
it's,
whole ride.
that's right,
Okay.
sorry.
Does that bring up any questions from Ms. LaCour, from any of the commission members?
Well, I just want to ask, would it be multiple doctors at one time in that building, or just one family, one?
I don't think that my house, it's a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, can handle more.
Okay.
Any further questions from Ms. LaCour by commission members?
I think you made it kind of simple.
Are there anyone else to speak on behalf of the application of LaCour? Hearing none, is there any opposition to the application of LaCour? Hearing none, discussion by commission members.
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Claiborne, second by Ms. DuBois. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. You're subject to rezoning, so you'll recall, even though I stumbled, it'll be introduced on September the 12th and voted for finally on September the 26th, and is final 10 business days later.
10 business days after the 26th.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, and I would suggest, you may come on the 12th and sit, nothing may happen, but like I say, just as soon as I tell you don't show up, it's for introduction only, somebody will get up and say, I've gotta be somewhere with grandbabies on the 26th, so y'all need to hear me.
Thank you.
But if nobody gets up on the 12th, I wouldn't say anything.
Thank you all for
Thank you, Ms.
listening.
LaCour.
I do appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Roman numeral 5, subsection C. The application is by Dr. John and Ms. Sarah Ziegler to rezone the following lot on the northwest corner of Nelkin and Demosier Street, fronting 53 feet on Nelkin by 125 feet from R1 residential to R1 residential with a special exception. The reason is to operate a short-term rental. 202 Demosier Street, exhibit number 3, councilperson district number 1. Summary by the director.
So it's the same as Ms. LaCour. She's wanting to do a short-term rental. I'm not sure the number of bedrooms, so if you want to elaborate on your house.
It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath.
But it will be a short-term rental. It won't be a B&B.
So it's a full house rental, whatever they say they'll pay you, either monthly, weekly, or daily, you hand the keys over and
Yes.
the tenant. All right, any questions from Ms. Ziegler? Anybody else to speak on behalf of the application of Ziegler? Any opposition to the application of Ziegler? Hearing none, discussion by commission members.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Lewis, second by Lewis. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Once again, Ms. Ziegler, September the 12th, show up, if it's brought up, say something, if not, say nothing, come back on the 26th.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Final 11 days after that. Roman numeral 5, new business, subsection D, the application by Mr. Winston Ferguson to rezone the following. Lot 5 of the David Pearson survey of the south side of Sydney Street from R1 residential to R1 residential with a special exception. The reason to operate a short-term rental bearing municipal address of 203 Sydney Street, exhibit number 4 in Commissioner's packet, councilperson district number 2. Summary by the director as we wait for the applicant or his designee to come forward.
Again, we have another application where they're applying for a short-term rental for Sydney Street.
All right, please, Mr. Ferguson, state your name for the record.
Winston Ferguson.
Learn something every day. So this is your property,
Yes,
all right, and you intend to operate this as we talked about with the prior two applicants that
Yes,
whoever
sir.
rents it on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis, you're gonna give them the key, you're not segregating the left half, the right half, the front half, the back half.
no, I've had it as a furnished rental for 17 years. I'm just trying to up my income a little bit.
All right,
I would like to point out a correction. Application was for R2 special exception to R2 to R2 special exception. The property is already zoned R2, so there's a typo.
all right. You know, let's go ahead and make them, without further discussion, let's make motion to amend the application from R2 residential to recognizing that that's what it's already zoned, to R2 residential with a special exception to operate a short-term rental.
So moved.
Motion by
second.
Brown, second by DuBois. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. All right, is there anyone else to speak on behalf of the application of Mr. Ferguson? Is there any opposition to the application of Ferguson? Discussion by commission members.
Excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please come forward, ma'am. Sure.
My name is Patricia Brown. I live at 169 Cypress Avenue, which is at the corner of Sydney Street and Cypress, the greenhouse. Okay. And I wanted to ask about parking, because that street is narrow. Cars already park on the street, and I don't think that house has a lot of parking. So I'm concerned about whether that action would bring more cars into the neighborhood. Can I speak to that?
I mean, Ms. Rock, is that particularly relevant to this application? I mean, we certainly can answer it, but.
Well, parking is already established. It's for residential. It's zone R2. It already has, if it's gonna have a multiple use to it, it already should have parking there for that. Just
So-
because it's changing for a special exception and getting designated for short-term rental does not mean that the parking will increase.
And so are you saying that this is if in fact it's non-conforming, without conceding that it's non-conforming, it's grandfathered in, for lack of a better term?
Yes.
All right.
I'll address that, though. It's got
Sure.
2 off-street parking spaces and room for at least 2 on-street parking spaces. It's just a 2-bedroom house, so it's not gonna have a lot of people staying there.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ferguson. Any other, I guess that wasn't an opposition, but more of an
Question.
inquisition. Is there any opposition to the application of Mr. Ferguson? Hearing none, discussion by commission members. To the,
I move we approve.
motion by DuBois to approve the amended application, second by Lewis. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. And Miss Oaks, you're getting the correct Lewis back there, huh?
This is one correct, that's fine.
I'm just checking. Roman numeral 5, new business, subsection E, the application by Ms. Debra T. Arnold to rezone the following. Lot 17 of St. Clair Estates, unit number 4, from R1 residential to R1 residential with a special exception. The reason is to operate a short-term rental bearing municipal address 793 Whitfield Drive, exhibit number 5, councilperson district number 1. A summary of the application by the director.
Well, tonight seems to be the night for short-term rental, so again, we have another short-term rental, same as before, same scenarios.
All right. Mr.
I
Richmond?
didn't understand what she said.
She said, same song, second verse. And so it's just a short-term rental, just like the prior 3 applications we listened to. Is that good enough, Mickey?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Ask away. And Mr. Richmond, please identify yourself for the record.
Sure, I'm John Richmond, live at 916 Washington Street.
And you're here representing Miss Arnold?
I am. I'm not Debra Arnold, and I'm not her real estate agent, Kathy Richmond, but Debra's out of town. Kathy's recovering from foot surgery, got a foot elevated, couldn't attend, so they asked me if I'd stand in.
All right. You heard the summary of the application by the director. Is there anything you'd like to add to that, or you feel like you?
No, this is
Sure.
exactly as the others. Shouldn't increase parking at all. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, I believe. It's got a 2-car garage with 2 additional parking spaces in the driveway. So shouldn't increase traffic at all, shouldn't bring any more traffic than you see now on that street.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Richmond. Any questions by commission members of Mr. Richmond? All right, anyone else to speak on behalf of the application of Ms. Arnold? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to opposition to the application of Arnold. And Mr. Richmond, I have a feeling there's going to be some opposition. So please make note of their complaints, as your rebuttal will be limited solely to their complaints or random questions from the commission.
Sure.
You're always subject to random questions from the commission. Let's hear from the first person opposing the application of Arnold. Please come forward to the AMBO and identify yourself.
Good afternoon. My name is Carol Stedman. This is my husband, Dwayne Stedman. We live at 803 Whitfield Drive, right down the street, 4 houses down from the house that we're talking about. We've lived in our home for 21 years. We found, by total surprise, that this house was going to be the proposed B&B by Debbie. We found out that on the internet that it was going to be possibly used as an Airbnb. As the word got out, the more we spoke to our neighbors and the more we discovered they were in shock as we were that a B&B could just appear on our street in our neighborhood. So I started investigating and found 2 separate zoning restrictions that are recorded in the courthouse that both state clearly and word for word that no lot or building site shall be used except for residential purposes. Looking further, I find that all of our properties are rated R1, that is defined as a single-family dwelling. The restrictions also state that the regulations of an R1 are designed to protect the residential character of the area by prohibiting all commercial activities. Well, I think we can all figure out that a B&B, an Airbnb, is a commercial activity. There's an exchange of money. Airbnb has to be licensed and pay taxes. That's a business. We strongly believe that the short-term rental of a B&B will have a detrimental impact on the character of our neighborhood and the community due to the transient nature of its occupancy. The occupants are not renting or leasing the B&B for a long period of time. The occupants of a B&B are short-term and less likely to participate or have a vested interest in our community. I cannot imagine the possibilities of a crammed rental house for Christmas festival, holidays, fraternity, sororities, or other celebration that this house could be used for. Well, we wondered how the neighbors in our subdivision felt about a commercial building such as a B&B being in our neighborhood. So if a few of us went door to door to talk to our neighbors and find out about how they felt. Almost 100% of our neighbors were against the rezoning, with the exception of one sweet 93-year-old lady who was on the fence until she learned more about it. If they were against the rezoning, we asked if they wouldn't mind signing the petition against the rezoning. We have Signed on the petition, we have a total of 81 signatures, and I'd like to present the petition, another page, the petition as evidence of the residents that do not want the B&B in our neighborhood.
Okay.
What is weird about this change, it would affect one house only to allow for short-term rentals, but it clearly opens the door for other rentals to be on our street. The majority of our neighbors said that they are not against a B&B, but just not right in the middle of our residential neighborhood, full of children. The neighborhood cannot handle the potential traffic and parties. I can't imagine a house in our neighborhood that has different people constantly coming and going, and we have no clue who they are. Our streets are narrow with no sidewalks. Parking on the street creates havoc and is dangerous for our children as well as a traffic hazard right now. We strongly object to this rezoning change. We purchased our homes for long-term use and are not open to commercialize and jeopardize our investments in our homes and open the door for a neighborhood of B&Bs and other commercial activities. We strongly are against a B&B, an Airbnb, being inserted into an established neighborhood that doesn't want it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Allow me to
Stedman.
speak.
Any questions for Mr. or Ms. Stedman at this time? Please give your petition to Ms. Oaks, and she'll make sure it's made part of the record with your signatures. All right. Anyone else in opposition to the application of Ms. Arnold?
May I say something
Sure.
else? We have a wonderful neighborhood, and they're represented by all these people right here that are against the Airbnb. And this speaks for itself right here. That we take very active pride in our neighborhood, and it's residential and it's ours. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stedman. Anyone else to speak in opposition to the application of Ms. Arnold? Yep, Ms. Oaks is over there in the red shirt. What's that? It's SDR, yes. Anyone else to speak in opposition to the application of Ms. Arnold? Ma'am, please come up to the podium and identify yourself and your address, please.
My name is Kate Cummings. I live at 472 Whitfield, 742 Whitfield. We just moved there a year ago. I keep getting the numbers mixed up. I also oppose this rezoning. I know I have reached out via email to Ms. Rock, and she did clarify that while it is not considered a bed and breakfast in legal definition, it is still an Airbnb. It's not being lived in by the owner, so it's not an owner-occupied home. It is a home that is left empty solely for tourists to come in and stay. This is right down the street from me. I have a 3-year-old son. I know a lot of other people on the street have small children who ride their bikes and they play in the street. And inviting people who are not familiar with our area into the street, a neighborhood that already has limited exits, I feel like it is inviting uncertainty that we don't need. On top of this, I worry that allowing this rezoning will open the door for anyone else who wants a short-term rental to come in and use this as an example as why they should be able to rezone. This is a single-family neighborhood, and by buying up homes by people who have no intention of living there and only want to rent them out to tourists, you're taking homes away from potential single families, first-time homeowners, or people who intend to do long-term rentals for people who want to live in the area. I feel like it would negatively impact our neighborhood. It could drive up rent prices, drive up homeowner prices, and simultaneously devalue our homes. This is a new area for a lot of the country. There aren't a lot of laws or regulations around short-term rentals. I know that several parishes in Louisiana have worked to regulate and ban them outright. New Orleans and Baton Rouge recently tried to pass regulations, but were overturned by the court because they said it was unconstitutional because it discriminated against out-of-state property owners.
Actually, the United States Fifth Circuit said that the New Orleans short-term rental application discriminated against people in New Orleans who didn't own or occupy their property. That was a recent decision, maybe the 28th of last month.
It was reason. There's a lot of conflicting information when you try to look it up, but there have been studies by Harvard Business Review that while there can be long-term positive impacts on the economy, short-term, you run into issues with housing availability and housing affordability. And in a city that already struggles with having so much of the population under the poverty line and having so many areas of the city that need attention, I feel as though putting a short-term rental into an established, small, single-family neighborhood isn't worth it. They should be redirecting their energy elsewhere.
Any questions for?
Would you restate the primary reason that the court turned that down?
Well, in that particular case, it was a case that was from New Orleans about short-term rentals. It was August the 28th. I sent it to you, didn't I, Chantrell? Like the 28th or something like that of last month. They tried to make a regulation that said that you could only, you had to have a homestead exemption on the property to get short-term rentals. United States Fifth Circuit, which is above, it's the next level is the U.S. Supreme Court. They said you can't do that. You can regulate them by licensure and you can tax them, but you can't say that, because it didn't, the argument is that it discriminated against people from out of state. And the U.S. Fifth Circuit said, no, it discriminated against people across town in New Orleans or people in Shreveport that own a house in New Orleans, and then it wasn't rationally related to the problem that they were trying to address, and that there were other ways to address it, which of course is unsatisfying if you're trying to figure something out. They said you can license it, you can tax it, but you can't do this. I'm not sure it helps a bunch here, but at least the courts are starting to look at it.
I would also like to add to what they had said before me, which was the argument is that this is a residential home that the owner, when they leave, are choosing to rent out, and that's not the case here. This person is not living in this home. It was bought and renovated solely to rent out to tourists specifically. And on top of that, I lost my thought. It's not an individual residential owner. The person who bought this house has registered an LLC to own it, which to me speaks to it being a commercial entity. It is someone who bought this property solely to operate it as a business for income, and that's not what the houses in this neighborhood are for.
Fair enough. Any more questions for this young lady? Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else in opposition to the application of Arnold?
Hey y'all, I'm Chelsea DeWeese. This is my daughter Riley, and we're the loud crew in the back. We just moved in about a month ago. We're at 802 Whitfield. And what drew us to the neighborhood was, no ma'am, everything that we heard about. It was back when my husband and I were going to school here, and his age people were growing up. This was the neighborhood to be in, family-oriented, safe, fun. Kids could play in the front yard, not have to worry about anything. That our house is close enough to the corner. We're one house away from the corner, and then this house is directly across from that corner. So, like everybody mentioned before, narrow streets, it's one way in, one way out. Right now, we have kind of trouble with people taking that curve too fast, coming around too quickly. I've even experienced it pulling into my own driveway, picking the girls up from school. So, playing out in the front yard is kind of a concern, thinking that I have to be out there 24/7, albeit I would be, but still, if I were to walk into the garage and one of my daughters is playing in the front yard, just worrying, is someone going to come around too quickly? Again, like they said, the transient nature of somebody being in that neighborhood, we were drawn because it was family oriented. It's a college town. It's not regulated to say who can and who cannot come in because it's business oriented. If there's a college frat party and I've got girls trying to sleep, we work, we have to get up in the morning, things like that. We've been in neighborhoods with issues like that before. and just the public disturbance of it, it's very unsettling knowing that we moved in to a place where we're gonna build some roots, stay here for the long term, raise our children here in a family-oriented community, and just to think that this would open up the door, like everybody else has said, to commercialize the neighborhood is just a very, very unsettling feeling. If, as we were looking this summer, if the neighborhood we were looking in had residences like this, had businesses like this, we would immediately have turned away. So that was one big perk to this neighborhood was the sense of community, the sense of safety, the sense of family-oriented, single occupancy homes.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions for this young lady? And even for the younger lady, any questions for her?
She's ready.
She wants that fuzzy black thing.
She's ready to go to bed. So sorry for any interruption.
I'm not quite there yet, but I'm not too far behind you.
Thank you for letting us speak.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else to speak in opposition to the application of Arnold? Going once? Going twice? Mr. Richmond, would you please come up and respond if you so choose?
I made some notes, and I'll do my best to address the things that I'm aware of. On the tax assessor's records, it's my understanding that this is a sole owner, and it's listed as Debra T. Arnold. As far as, I'm looking down my notes here to just try to make my replies, you get a lot of things on the agenda, make them concise and curt as possible. A lot of the things that were brought up tonight, I certainly understand. However, I don't believe there's an HOA in that area that restricts some of the things that they're talking about. I've looked and it still is zoned for residential purposes. This is, as we all know, Airbnbs are something that have occurred in the last few years, and everyone's kind of jumping as to how to address it. The fact is, though, houses have been subleased and leased for short-term rentals in Natchitoches for decades, if not centuries. That's just kind of the way things are here. I think probably all of us know people who leave their homes at Christmas time and rent them out. That happens. Now it's kind of being forced to bubble up to the top. It's being addressed as a short-term rental via Airbnb or VRBO, and those things are bubbling up. We're able to tax them. We're able to generate some tax revenue off of those things. And so that's kind of where that goes. I'm really not sure how to address that because it's been happening both below the surface and above the surface for a very long time. With regards to this not being full-time owner occupancy, it is my understanding that that is correct. However, it was bought as a second home. The people who own it live in Pineville. They want to make money off of it when they're not here enjoying it. In fact, I just met Debbie and her husband Virgil a week or so ago, and they enjoy the area. They enjoy the home. They plan on spending time there. So this is a way, like many people do, to enjoy the opportunity to make some revenue from their home whenever they're not there. That being said, they also will vet every person who applies. If you're familiar with Airbnb, you have the ability to see those people. You have the ability to interact with them prior to their taking occupancy of your home. And just like a B&B, which I own a true B&B, you know, where we're next door, we have 24-hour observation of the property. We're there, and we make sure that those people who are renting from us, we vet them as best we can. You typically don't have a whole lot of people who rent Airbnbs for frat parties. They don't want to open themselves up to that liability. In fact, I don't know that I've ever heard of that, period, in this area. Perhaps others have. So addressing the questions, I hope that answers some of the questions as far as the ownership, that ownership being a couple, well, actually, at the tax assessor, it's only listed in Debra's name, but it's a couple that lives in Pineville using it as a second home, going to rent it out when they're not there to people that they fully vet. I'm not aware of there being a homeowners association in that area, which I certainly understand if there were, it may govern some of these activities that we're talking about. With regards to traffic and parties, there are strict restrictions on the home as to how many people will be allowed to take temporary residence there, sleep there overnight, be there during the day, and the amount of cars that are available for parking and the spaces provided for them. I think hopefully that's answered most all the questions.
Any questions for Mr. Richmond?
I have a question. You mentioned the Airbnb thing. This application says nothing about that. It says a short-term rental. So,
Let Mr. Johnson, if I might, with Ms. Rock, as I understand it, Airbnb and VRBO are vehicles for payment and not actually usages under our
Actually, under
Appendix B.
residential R1, a B&B is a use by right.
No, but Airbnb or VRBO are simply vehicles for getting paid, like
No, those are not.
eBay or
That is correct.
Amazon.
That's correct.
Am I mistaken?
Venmo for cash apps, and
Right.
that's what you sign up through there, and it's a way that you can receive your payment.
You know, unfortunately, Mr. Johnson, it's like photocopies, photostatic copies. What do you call them? Everybody calls them a Xerox. That's our age. Please Xerox this for me. Nobody says, please make well, Mickey Hennigan probably does, please make a photostatic copy of it. Because Mickey remembers when they were wet and on a roll. But, you know, the point is it's invaded that's a vehicle for payment. I know one of my kids has used that to do exactly what you talk about. He and his wife move out for a weekend, and somebody comes in and they rent it, but that's the vehicle they get paid by. It's not what they're doing. It's an Amazon, an eBay, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it may have been a poor use of terms on my
It
part,
is,
but the idea is.
because the problem is, John,
that's
is
why I
that
wanted to
B&B
clarify that while you were here, because, I mean, you know, I can understand those people in that area. They don't, you know.
It is not a B&B, though. It's a short-term rental.
That's correct, and that's some of the problem is we recognize B&B in our statute, and people sometimes confuse Airbnb, the vehicle of payment, with B&B, which is the usage. Am I misstating it, Ms. Rock?
You're not.
All right, I'm sorry to go off on this tangent, but I just wanted to make sure everybody understood what we're talking about. Are there any more questions for Mr. Richmond by commission members? All right, thank you, Mr. Richmond.
Thank you.
Ms. Rock, I would like to make a question that we've had a couple of people that say these are narrow streets in this subdivision. It's my understanding these streets are standard width, 27 feet curb to curb.
They are.
And so there's nothing narrow about them. Like, for example, East Second Street that backs up to my house, that's probably 18 feet wide with no curb and gutter. These are fully, if they were to build this subdivision now, the width of the streets would not be required to be any larger than they are now.
Right, they are standard size.
Unlike my house that was built in the 50s, late 40s, early 50s, where it was 18 feet or whatever you could get away with.
They are standard size roads.
And meet the current standards as well.
They do.
All right. Discussion by commission members.
My concern is it's a secondary residence for these people. Their primary is in Alexandria. And the St. Clair neighborhood is their secondary. A lot of the people that have bought homes over there bought them as primary homes for their families. And to, you know, have something like a short-term rental being owned by somebody that it's not even a, you know, a resident of the neighborhood. It's something that I'm concerned about.
All right.
I have the same concern, and that makes it different from the other applications that we've been hearing. It almost sounds like it was bought for business purposes to me.
Yeah, my concern also is the opposition. We had the other application, we didn't have any opposition, but, I mean, this community, apparently, they don't want it in their community, and I think we need to possibly get Ms. Arnold in here herself and have her explain exactly what her intentions is with that property before we make a final decision. That's in my opinion.
All right, Mr. Johnson, any comments from the Lewises or Ms. DuBois?
Well, listening to everyone in here, I agree with everyone on this board, what they just said. You know, you got someone else out of town and then you want to rent somewhere in another city, and I have a lot of concern with that too. I just can't buy that.
Ms. DuBois?
Well, my concern is we've already approved 3 prior to this one. And so therefore, the precedent has already been set.
And the other Mr. Lewis, you got a comment?
But the rest of them didn't have opposition.
Right.
And could I make another point?
Sure.
too? The rest of them lived in, as their primary residence.
Yeah.
Right.
Before we make a decision,
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to have Ms. Arnold here herself to clarify what it is she wants to do with the place. If we deny the application, it'll be 6 months before she can come before us again. If we table the application, then they will give her a chance to at least come back next month to present it herself, to let us know, let the commission know what it is that they're wanting to do instead of moving forward.
Mr. Richmond, will Ms. Arnold be available next month?
I don't know her schedule, but I'll be glad to pass along that request.
Well, I guess at the request of the director, since she does this as her living and we just come and help her, I don't want to speak for the rest of my commission members, but I'm sure we would defer to her. But by the same token, Mr. Richmond, we're not going to make these people come back 2 more times. So I think what I would say is that I would like and entertain a motion at the request of the director to table this till October the 4th. And we will take it up come hell or high water at that time.
I move we table the motion.
I
To the
second.
4th, second by Mr. Lewis. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. So opponents, we have you on the record. I would suggest you show back up because Ms. Arnold is theoretically going to show back up, and we'll take it up at that time. And I'm sorry you have to come back, but this is the price of a democratic republic. Roman numeral F, the application by Mr. Mark Lewis. I'm not going to read the entirety of it. 312 Texas Street. I understood that that's been postponed. October the 4th. October 4th.
Thank you, sir.
No problem. I tell you what, we're gonna pause and let the folks clear out because Ms. Oakes wants to be able to hear me talk. Roman numeral 5, subsection F, it's my understanding the application, Mr. Mark Lewis, has been passed till October the 4th, 2012, so I won't bother reading that anymore. Roman numeral G, the application by the Natchitoches Parish School Board to request a variance in the following location: 4.5 acres located between East Broadmoor Subdivision Unit Number 2 Park and south by Royal Street and west by East Broadmoor Subdivision Unit Number 2 to require a variance of 16 of the parking spaces of the required 176 parking spaces provided for the area. The reason is renovations and additions to the Natchitoches Parish School Board location bearing municipal address 310B Royal Street, Councilperson District Number 2, Exhibit Number 7 in your record. Ms. Oaks, please show a recusal by Mr. Johnson and Ms. DuBois. They will not be participating in discussion or voting. And by my count, that leaves us a remainder of a quorum. Is that correct, Ms. Rocks, Ms. Oaks?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Madam Director, will you summarize the application by the school board?
Well, I'm going to be really brief and let the gentleman actually put into words what they're doing with this project. I know they're requesting spaces because the area that they're renovating, they don't need all the spaces that's going to be required by the square footage of the building. So they're going to provide us a minimum number of parking spaces. It's not going to be used every day, so they won't need all the parking spaces. They're going to ask for a variance for that. But just in case if I'm not clear on the explanations, I prefer the gentleman to explain everything.
But it's less than 10% of the variance, correct? It's 176 required, they're requesting 16 being varied, so it's less than a 10% variance, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Mr. Wascom, please identify yourself for the record.
Lee Wascom, 1512 East Lakeshore Drive here in Natchitoches. I'm the Director of Business Affairs for the school board. We are preparing to build this building, an IT center, right to the left of the media center. This is a good bit. If you see from the drawings, it's a good bit off the road. And anyhow, we're going to be building a lot of parking around it, but what we could squeeze in was 160, and we're asking for a variance of 16. This is our engineer.
Jim Verswivel, Pan American Engineers, 1717 Jackson Street in Alexandria.
From down around Bayou Rapides, I guess, with a name like this.
Grew up on Bayou Rapides, absolutely.
My dad represented Steve for years.
Okay, kinfolk. Our office actually, if you're looking at the drawing, our office actually drew this, put the application together, so I'd be happy to try to answer any questions, but I will let you all know that we pretty much put parking on every piece of this property that we could. The only areas that are left not paved really as far as any size are gonna have little small shallow grassed detention basins because of stormwater requirements by the city.
And I guess, Ms. Rock, have you talked with them, made sure that they're as compliant as they can be with the green ordinance?
They are.
You know, for reference, I think we approved one of these for Sabine State Bank maybe about 3 years ago, next to the Valley Electric, right behind their branch, where they moved their entire IT department. And we had, I think, a similar deal in the fact that it was just gonna be computer engineers and operators in there. There was no public, while we looked at it, our ordinance unfortunately is written from a use by the public, and by definition, this is not used by the public.
Right.
Is that a fair thing to say, gentlemen?
That's correct. It's going to be the IT department, the NVA, the Natchitoches Virtual Academy, so they're all working on computers, but almost no public.
Any question for the school board representative or the engineer by commission members? Hearing none, is there any opposition to the application by the school board? Hearing none, does the commission have a discussion or a pleasure?
I make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Lewis, second by Brown. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. That's final in 11 days. assuming nobody files an appeal. And please be sure and reflect that Ms. Du Bois nor Mr. Johnson participated in the discussion or deliberation or voting on this. Thank you, gentlemen. Roman numeral 5, subsection A, the application by Mr. Frank Griffin, to request a variance at the following: Lot 6 and Lot 7, in the east half of Lot 5 of Block E, being Tract B of Shamrock Park subdivision, less a strip on the east side of 45.8 feet by 103.5 feet to Foshi. The variance request is 25 feet off of the rear setback of 25 feet to place an additional storage unit, 318 Pegasus. Hello, Mr. Griffin. Please identify yourself for the record.
Frank Griffin, 259 Plantation Point, Natchitoches, Louisiana.
The discussion by, or summary by the director.
So right now, Mr. Griffin already has several storage units there. There is significant room on the rear of the property, but he would be within the setbacks, the 25-foot setbacks, if he places an additional storage unit with an office. There isn't anything behind that area. It's just greenery, so he won't be abutting against any other structures or any other businesses.
All right.
So I don't see a reason
And
not
for
to.
reference, I used to own a partial interest in 105 Chief Drive, which is at the corner of Pegasus and Chief. In fact, your map is incorrect. If you see it and it says Pegasus Drive, that is not Pegasus Drive, that is Chief Drive. And the only property is the property to the south, which is 105 Chief Drive. That was all part of the Shamrock Motel built by Mr. Bill Manning in the mid-50s. I ended up with that property when my dad and his law partner split up, and there's nothing over there that's compliant. Nothing compliant with anything. All that stuff was built before the city went out that far. The city limits in about 54 or so, right there on Kaiser and Kaiser and Williams. Everything South Williams, Broadmoor and all that wasn't brought in until the 60s. And so I guess the point being, we can talk about it, but none of that stuff's compliant over there.
Right.
Mr. Griffin, you've heard the director's summary and my comments for whatever they're worth. Is there anything you need to add?
Just the only thing is, we purchased a property in January from Dr. Burke's estate. It was pretty empty, kind of run down. We've recently repainted the entire thing, installed new doors, installed new security system on there. Our goal is to build out this back area with additional units, and then when we finish that, we're going to come in and completely redo the driveway, because the driveway's old and has holes in it, and just kind of clean up the area. We've been working with the apartments that are right next door to us to try to get them to bring, and they've agreed when we come in and clean up our area, driveway, they're going to piggyback off of it, and instead of leaving their little section that's kind of on my property.
About Miss Bonner?
Right, they came out.
She always likes to come in halves or thirds.
I'm gonna clean up everything in the part of their property that's kind of access to our property. They're gonna come in, so we think that we, can really come in there and clean it up. And our plan is just to put a small office on the end of one of the storage units to have our staff there. I have an office across town on Old Highway 6. I'd want to move my people there to work there during there, and we've already turned our other facility into an indoor baseball, softball, football training facility. So it's just a matter of us being able to shuffle some of our staff around and kind of have people there and try to, finish the project we started in January with restoring that facility and then expanding it.
All right. Ms. Rock, have we heard anything from anybody in the neighborhood? Anyone that got notifications?
I haven't heard anything from anyone.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Griffin from commission members?
I move we approve.
Well, let's do the courtesy of, is there anyone here in opposition to the application of Griffin? All right. Ms. Du Bois.
I move we approve.
Motion to approve. Second by Lewis. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Final in 11 days, Frank.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Roman numeral 5, new business, subsection I, the application by Mr. Daniel Simmons to request a variance at the following location, 9.040 acres, being tract 3A in sections 70 and 7, Township 9 North, Range 7 West, Natchitoches Parish, Louisiana, as shown on this plat of survey by Mr. Robert Lynn Davis, registered land surveyor, dated March 11, 2022, recorded at map slide 851A of the records of Natchitoches Parish, Louisiana. Variance requested is a variance of the 5-year or newer age requirement for mobile home placement at an MHP mobile home park redevelopment, bearing municipal address 1815 South Drive, exhibit number 9 in Commissioner's packet, council person district number 4. Summary by the director.
So Mr. Simmons and his company has bought the Braxton Trailer Park, as you all know.
Which was the Carter trailer.
Which is
Yes, sir.
Carter's Trailer Park, yes. So as you know, if you've been down there recently, that trailer park is in terrible condition. So Mr. Simmons and his group are wanting to come in and improve it. However, the trailers that he's wanting to bring in, I'm not sure if it's just one or more than one, but those trailers are not 5 years or newer. I think they're a little bit older, but he's saying that they're in fairly good condition. But according to our ordinance, the trailers have to be 5 years or newer. The other thing that we found out about this area, it is a grandfathered use for a mobile home park. The area is actually zoned for R1 single family. So any improvements that will be done to bring it all the way up, it would have to be brought up to code into its entirety, or rezoned, or for.
And I guess maybe I don't understand it, but is this for lots that already existed in the mobile home park, or is this just raw land that they want to add on to?
No, this is for lots that already existed.
Okay.
So this park was there before we passed the mobile home park.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought it was something about an expansion.
No, not on this one.
Okay, so this is just about placing older than 5-year. Okay.
Homes on the properties that are already designated for lots.
Right.
But this is just about placing something plus 5 years older.
Right. And so according to our ordinance, anytime a trailer that has already been placed in one location is moved into another location, it's considered a first move. So then according to the ordinance, it'll say that that's not allowed.
All right. And does the director have a position on this? I think I kind of know what it is, but, I mean, can we even provide a variance on this?
I'm not sure. I wasn't sure if we can provide a variance because it was set by city council. I wasn't sure if this will be something that we would have to say, well, we would have to let city council to not vote to see if they want to revise the ordinance to accommodate that, or how could we even vote on an ordinance that's in place? Could we grant a variance of 5 years or newer, or will we have to let city council decide on it to vote?
I can tell you, I don't know if anybody else was on here when they decided that, but they came down pretty hard on that. But in any event, Mr. Simmons, you've heard the summary of the director of your application. Is there anything else you need to add?
No, sir, just for the record, my name is Stephen Pirelli. I work for.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm here representing Daniel Simmons and Real Estate Holdings. And I have some information packets if I could hand it to the council.
Sure.
Brought a couple copies with it. We have purchased one home. We bought the park on July 21st, and so we've had it for just over a month now. And we did purchase a home about an hour north of here. We were looking to bring it to the park, and throughout Texas, Mississippi, Louisiana, we own 46 parks, 4,400 pads. And what we do is we dump a lot of money, sweat, tears in the parks, really bring low-income housing affordable to these folks in the cities. And it's just going to throw a big wrench into bringing this park back to its full potential with having, newer than 5 years of homes being brought into the park. There's an example of a home that we bought an hour north of here that we're looking to bring in. It's actually sitting on the guy's piece of property, and we can't move it because we don't want to break the ordinance.
Well, let me ask you this, Mr. Pirelli.
Yes, sir.
Did your client, read the statutes before they bought?
I guess not.
Okay, that's fair.
Yes, sir.
That's fair. I mean, it's just, sometimes we get, in here with this, I know how these, ER docs feel with people with self-inflicted shotgun wounds to their feet. It's like, please don't point that at your feet and pull the trigger.
Yes, sir. We've never, came into this situation with an ordinance of 5 years or newer, so.
Does your client realize that our ordinances have been available for the last 15 years on municode.com?
I'm sure they have.
Questions from Mr. Pirelli by commission members, these packets.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me.
Yeah, sure.
Mr. Chairman, this is for you. Do you think that this young man should go before the city council? Because
It looks pretty clear to me that the way this thing was done, it wasn't one of those things where you got a 25-foot deal and
Right.
can you massage it and get me down to 17? I mean, this was,
Yeah.
it was a prior administration, I will admit that. It was a prior administration, but it came down pretty hard that they didn't want any more, they really didn't want any more mobile homes in town at all.
That's right. Right.
And I squeezed them, and Mr. Murkison Jr. squeezed them about, you can't exclude them, but you can. It's sort of like we talked about that stuff with the Fifth Circuit about you can't exclude short-term rentals, but you can regulate them and you can license them.
Right.
And so that was the prior administration essentially wanted to ban mobile homes and wanted to ban any expansion of mobile home parks. And this is what those of us who knew better did to try to regulate and address the problem that the prior administration saw. Because it doesn't really, I understand not wanting a 1967 mobile home. Good Lord, you wouldn't want that either.
No, sir.
But you want a 2005, a 2015 Palm Harbor that's built with plywood and standard 2x4s and have a composite shingle roof. I'm not sure you want to exclude that.
Right.
But, these things were pushed and pulled between the prior administration, by myself, the city attorneys. We talked about it, spitballed it, and, we got them to sort of relent for this kind of deal. In that if the technology had caught up to where a mobile home was no longer had a 1.5 by 3 foot stud in it and had, if you rubbed real hard, you could see the Budweiser label behind the metal. I mean, these are genuine vinyl-sided,
Skirting, new roofs,
composited.
paint.
Well, skirting's required. I'm talking about the plywood floors, plywood roof decking, three tab shingles. I mean, anything built in the last, probably since 2010, probably does that.
Right.
So is it appropriate now? Maybe, maybe not. But you know what? All it takes is 3 council persons to say, hey, we adopted that at the time because there was some stuff at that time that if you reach back 5 years was really, really bad. Now, reaching back 5 years may not make as much sense as it did 12 years ago. But Mr. Lewis, I think you hit the nail on the head. That's the solemn expression of the legislative will of the people. And I'm not sure that we ought not turn it down just for the point of putting a sharp point on it to let them tell us where we need to go.
Right.
12 years ago, that might have been the right thing to do. But, now maybe it's not.
I'm on that same thought too.
And I mean, this young man, you deal with mobile homes evidently. Have I misstated anything about?
No, sir. They're all, in the last 20 years, have made, they're made completely different than they were 25 years ago or 30 years ago. We wouldn't bring anything that's,
Well, I
older
just
than
don't
20
think they
years or
exist
pulled in
anymore.
a
I don't
park.
think they exist anymore. If they're
No,
more
sir.
than 15 years old,
They're
I
actually-
don't think they exist.
There's a certain age requirement to even be moved.
And when they purchased it, was that disclosed to them, the fact that the city had this ordinance in place?
They were unaware of this situation, sir.
They wasn't aware of it?
We were not aware of it, yes, sir.
So
And if,
the person
it
that
would
they
make us very
purchased it,
difficult to.
person that they purchased it from didn't disclose that to them?
No, sir,
Well,
Mr.
but
Braxton
Walter,
did not.
Walter, I don't think the seller's got to disclose, hey, go look at the statutes, go look at the ordinances.
It's not his responsibility to tell us
It's not
that.
like we slipped it in here 3 years ago. I mean, that's been, Bobby, you've been on, you're the second oldest on here. That's been here since you've been on here, haven't you?
It has
What-
been
What, you been on here 15 years, 13?
17.
17 years. So it isn't like it got slipped in last week.
Right.
And like I say, Walter, this stuff's online. I don't even have a city code on my desk anymore. I just pull it all off of
And it
the
may
internet.
open up a whole bunch of other doors too, because, over on, Stella and Welch, there's a group of mobile homes over there that's just falling in.
Yeah.
And what would you create for that situation?
But, you know, if we could get something that had, you know, plywood floors, vinyl siding, genuine roof trusses, plywood decking, and composite shingles, it's got to be better. It's got to be better than what's there now. Like I say, this was a solution 12, 13 years ago, addressing a problem that may not exist anymore because time may have simply aged all those things out.
Yes, sir.
Let me ask a question. What shape are the mobile homes in that's there already?
Terrible. Oh, my
Terrible, sir.
goodness.
It is a very rundown
Oh,
park.
there's no question.
And if
You
we're
wouldn't
not,
let me dog live in most of
if
it.
this variance isn't accepted for changing of the new age restriction, it will remain what it is currently in conditions. There is no group of people that can do with this restriction.
So you wanna bring old mobile homes in?
We want to bring newer used mobile home parks.
But they're not 5 years old.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes,
the
ma'am.
problem is that
It's city
the
council.
MCO has to be 5 years or less.
And that's what's going on back there now. There's a sewage drain that goes in the back of this thing.
And we just installed two new pumps in the lift station to work on the sewer issue at the park. We have tree cutters cutting down all the limbs over the mobile homes right now also.
It's pretty bad.
It's been bad for a while back.
Personally, I can't see bringing old mobile homes in.
Well, we can't, you can't, they're in ordinance.
Did you not bring the pictures? Did you bring your pictures?
There's some pictures on the back of those pamphlets, ma'am.
But with all due respect, I think we're beating a dead horse here. If we have an ordinance,
Yeah.
then we have to.
I think the next people, I think the thing to do is to push
council
up
would have
and kick it upstairs.
The council.
Yeah.
have to
To the
work
council.
this.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, what's the commission pleasure?
I make a motion not to approve them, for them to go
Motion to
sit
not
down.
approve.
I'll second.
Second by DuBois. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, you have 11 days to appeal.
Okay, yes, sir. Thank you.
Now, I think, I will state something for the record. I think that our commission would like the city council to look at this, to improve, to make a one-time adjustment to try to address a problem that maybe is not as bad now as it was when the ordinance was adopted 12, 15 years ago. Is that fair, everybody?
Yes.
And that we think that's above our pay grade. Fair enough?
We will be making an appeal.
Yes, and
Yes, sir.
just, it doesn't cost anything. Just
Doesn't matter.
She'll give you a letter.
Yes, sir.
You just need to get a letter and put it on there. They'll put you on the agenda in the next 45 days.
Sounds great.
And we'll give you whatever assistance and, we can to get our city council to understand the problem. One of the great things you have is you have two persons on the city council that came from this commission.
Okay.
So it's not two people that you're trying to, educate about this.
Yes, sir.
And it just came from the walk of life.
Yes, sir. And all we're trying to do is improve this community and bring it back to its fullest
And
potential.
I think you can explain it to them.
Yes,
But
sir.
unfortunately, their predecessors adopted this ordinance, and I don't think it's like adjusting a lot line.
Gotta preach to a different choir.
Yeah, you know, it's, well, we all got no problems with giving you 4 or 5 feet of variance.
Right.
Or varying, you sat here through all this, we try to make it work.
Yes, sir.
But when it says no, mobile home, younger than, or older than 5 years, pretty tough for us to work around that.
Yes, sir.
And we appreciate you trying to help out here.
Yeah, thank y'all very much for having us, and, you know, we look forward to staying here and, really
If they'll give us
improving
some
this
different
community.
guidance, we'll work under it to try to make that place better.
We appreciate all y'all's help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Roman number 6, report of office activities.
Well, we are finally getting our code enforcement programs up and running. I know I spoke to you about that a couple of weeks ago. So Nicole and I will actually be attending a conference for code enforcement in October, and hopefully we can bring back some good information. I'm hoping you guys are still willing to work with us as being part of the commission that will oversee some of those things that we bring to you in reference to blight and how to help bring our community back to being the pretty city that it's always been.
We certainly appreciate your efforts. Anything else on office activities?
Not at the
Reverend
moment.
Claiborne?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All, yes, sir.
Can I ask a couple of questions? Just
Sure.
so I can take it back to Ms. Arnold?
Sure.
Have some clarity? Okay.
No problem.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I'm sorry I jumped in and
No.
didn't allow you to vote. Okay, so there will be no need to appeal right now.
No,
It's
it has not
tabled.
been acted on.
It's tabled until the next meeting.
Right.
Okay, I'll be sure to pass that on. And there's no further action required of her except to be here for the next
That is
meeting.
correct.
There is a matter of clarity, though, and I may have misunderstood because of where I was sitting. I think I may have heard that the other 3 that were approved were primary residences, or did you say that the people who own them?
I think that's what was said. The audio will be available probably at the end of the week.
Okay, that's what I heard also, and so as a
that
matter of
correct?
clarity,
The end of
I
the
don't
week?
think any of those
Tonight.
are primary
Tonight.
residences.
She'll be able to listen to it tomorrow.
Yeah. So, thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Richmond. So we had the question called. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Thank you all for coming.